Ciao, hi guys, it's Sinead and welcome back to my channel. And today I'm continuing my read along for ErHa Volume 4, and I'm cautiously excited. I feel like this has been the easiest volume so far. Knock on wood. I have wood here with me, we're knocking. I just I don't know, it's nice to kind of have a little bit of a breather after the previous volume. Also, hi. I'm sorry I'm a bit late. I'm gonna try and go a little bit over time as well just to make up for that. But yeah, it was just, we were at a restaurant and it was a bit of a rush getting back in time. Okay, so while we wait, just a few more minutes for people to arrive who might want to arrive. We are at the top of page 145. Hi! So yeah, okay, I am very excited. I have tea here with me. If you may be not familiar with how this works, I have tea here with me. We're gonna take a 10-minute break on the hour usually, or roundabout on the hour. And I think that's it. I feel like I just thought of something that I wanted to say and I can't remember what it is. It's okay, we'll find our way there if it's important. But yeah, let me just quickly grab a little bit of tea and then we can get started. Oh, also I am still technically some form of ill. I'm not sure, my voice is getting a little bit gruff, so if that becomes an issue as we continue reading, apologies, and we'll deal with it as it comes, but I think we should be okay. Okay. After a moment of blank staring, something seemed to occur to Chuaning. He turned his face away, lips pressed into a thin line and gloom gathering between his brows. But the backs of his ears was flushed pink. Okay, so just for context, Chuaning asked Moran why his voice is hoarse. And it's not because he's ill, but he is blaming it on inflammation, so that was Chuaning's reaction to it. He turned his face away, lips pressed into a thin line and gloom gathered between his brows, but the backs of his ear was flushed pink. The faint blush persisted until they got to Wharton town, only fading when they were seated in a room with a view inside a newly opened with a view inside the newly opened Zhongqie restaurant. This was the first time Moran had earnestly invited Chuaning out for a meal. When he had done so before, it had always been out of either necessity or exasperation, and thus his frame of mind had been completely different. Where in this case, they're basically on a date. Oh, that was the thing that I forgot. I hope the audio is okay, but I'm assuming, hopefully, that if there was an issue, you guys would have let me know. The waiter steeped a pot of Lushan mist and brought over some melon seeds and nuts, then respectfully produced 2 menus written on bamboo scrolls for the pair of cultivators from Sishan Peak. Moran flashed the waiter a smile as he took the scroll. Thanks. Oh no. Why do I get the horrible feeling Chuaning is gonna think he's a flirt? Because he kinda is a flirt, let's be honest. Thank you. Chuaning subtly glanced up at Moran. This person never used to have a habit of saying thanks before. Oh! Shizun should order whatever he likes, but I recommend their sweet and sour mandarin fish with pine nuts. I heard it's tasty and well presented. Chuaning nodded. Then we'll get that. You pick the rest. Moran grinned. I'll order according to Shizun's taste then. You know what kind of food I like? Chuaning asked mildly. I do, Moran said after a pause. He'd always known. He just never bothered to remember before. But from now on, he intended to never forget. He was still scanning the bamboo scroll when the sound of footfalls came from the stairs, along with the gentle clinking of a bead curtain. He heard the waiter's voice saying, "Ah, right this way, sir." Oh no. Who's it going to be? "The gentlemen you're looking for are in this room. Yes, yes. They haven't ordered wine yet." The curtain of blue silk and agate, that's not how I pronounce it, beads was gently lifted by a smooth, fair-skinned hand. Please tell me it is... Who's the nice guy? The guy that was supposed to be paired up with, the Rufungsek guy? Oh, I'm absolutely wonderful at describing it. But if it's not Hyewang-shi, if it's not him, I'm not interested in whoever just showed up. As the doorway appeared and At the doorway appeared an extraordinarily beautiful man with soft, ink-black hair and a smile in his eyes that could chase the clouds from the sky, carrying a pot of wine. Moran turned and was visibly startled. "Shimei, what are you doing here?" I ran into the sect leader at Mingpo Hall. He heard that the two of you were eating here and was concerned this restaurant wouldn't have aged wine since they've just opened. He sent me to deliver a pot of pear blossom white to go with your meal." Shimei swung the wine pot dangling from his hand as he spoke. The adorably stocky pot was formed of red clay and held in twined bamboo rattan, and the wine could be heard swishing inside, its sweet fragrance faintly discernible even through the seal. Shimei said with a smile, "Good thing I made it in time. It would have been a wasted trip if you'd already ordered wine." "What about you? Have you eaten yet?" Chuaning asked. "I'll eat when I get back. Mingpo Hall will be open for a while yet. I have time." Chuaning, being a courteous person, said, "You're already here, so why not stay, have a seat and eat with us? I shouldn't put Aaron to the expense." Moran smiled. "What expense? It's just a matter of adding a chair." He signaled for the waiter to bring out another set of bowls and chopsticks as he spoke. Zhongqi restaurant really was a fancy place. Even the chopsticks used in private rooms had threads of gold and silver inlaid into the tips, which glittered in the candlelight. Wow, that's a beautiful description. Hyewang-shi, there we go, thank you. And also hi. But look, I like Shimei for the most part. I think I've said this way too many times, but I don't trust the current Shimei at the moment. I feel like there's two sides of him and I'm stressed. Okay. It's also more stressful because we're having like a honeymoon phase sort of right now, but we're not even halfway through the full story, which just terrifies me honestly. Shimei took a seat and poured wine into luminous uh, phosphorescent jade cups for each of them. The rich aroma of a pear blossom white immediately permeated the air. It was a familiar scent. In his past life, Moran had drunk it when Shimei died, and yet again, all night on the rooftop after Chuaning died. But now they were both alive, and the calamity had passed. Moran suddenly felt like none of those things from the past, be it the possession or the affection, really mattered anymore. What mattered was that the two best people in his life were still here, and he could treat them to good food and good wine with the money he'd earned. This was enough. These cups shared today were worth more than all the lands he'd ruled in the past. How far he's come. Oh my goodness. "Excuse me, waiter. Can we get an order each of mandarin fish with pine nuts, stewed crab meatballs, savory pork trotter jelly, cherry ham, 3 delicacies soup, and steamed pork in a bamboo leaf, all mild, and then poached fish in hot chili oil, mapo tofu, beef tripe in chili sauce, and kung pao chicken as spicy as you make them. For dim sum, we'll have shrimp dumplings, steamed spare ribs, and taro with soy sauce, golden tripe with scallop, and chicken feet in soy sauce. As for dessert, Moran glanced at Chuaning and closed the menu. We'll have one of each. Without even looking up, Chuaning said, "We can't finish all that." Moran insisted, "We'll just pack up the leftovers to go. It'll get cold. We can have Meng Po Ho heat it up." Chuaning didn't feel like wasting any more breath on him. Moran was acting like a merchant who struck gold and got rich overnight, spending way too extravagantly. He opened his own menu, looked it over and said, "Just one order of sweet kidney bean rolls, one order of leaf-wrapped sticky rice cakes, and 3 bowls of tangyuan with red bean paste filling, thank you." The dishes arrived promptly, one after another. Shimei liked spicy food, while Chuaning couldn't take even a hint of it. So Moran arranged the dishes separately. Half the table was light and refreshing, the other half bright red and tempestuous. The colors complemented one another in a surprisingly appealing manner. Here comes the last one, our signature dish, mandarin fish with pine nuts. At the waitress' announcement, a plate of vibrantly colored and fragrant mandarin fish in a thick stew was presented by a pair of attendants. The fish must have weighed at least 5 catties, fried to a golden crisp and plated on an enormous sky blue porcelain dish. The flesh was cut into petals of each thickness, with a thick, richly red sweet and sour sauce laden over, and topped with a sparkling of emerald peas, slivers of Yunnan ham, and small translucent shrimp. Just the sight of the dish made one's eyes sparkle and mouth water. What a description, my goodness. Chuaning liked sweet things, especially sweet and sour things. Although his expression remained neutral as ever, when the fish was brought out, even he couldn't keep the twinkle from his eye. Moran didn't miss it. The waiter glanced at the table, spotted free space in front of Shimei, and started rearranging the plates to make room for the fish, but a pair of faster hands than his beat him to it. Moran stood and moved a couple of the meat dishes that Chuaning wasn't really eating to his own side of the table, then pushed a few of the delicious spicy dishes over to Shimei, leaving an empty space in front of Chuaning. Moran grinned at the waiter and said, "Right there is fine." He's being so attentive, oh my goodness. And I do appreciate these small gestures that shows that he's not disregarding Shimei all of a sudden, like he still clearly cares for him. And I do think maybe if I were to analyze this a bit, it shows that Moran is still kind of torn between the two of them. He's still treating both of them, well, he's now treating both of them more or less the same. Um, so that is quite interesting. All right then. The waiter was all smiles, delighted to have a customer so accommodating, and immediately took the plate from the attendants to set down on the stretch of open table before leaving with a bow. The rearrangement had been handled so naturally that anyone watching would only think Moran was helping the waiter out, but Shimei had noticed the hidden bias. The gesture took him by surprise, and a strange expression flickered in Shimei's eyes in a long moment before he lowered them, now a little upset. He felt that Moran, having returned after being away for 5 years, had changed. Not only did he look completely different, but the special attention he once showered on Shimei seemed to have faded a great deal. He liked mandarin fish with pine nuts too, so why did Moran put it so far from him? Did he not know, or did he no longer feel the way he used to? Okay, putting aside the fact that I'm genuinely concerned that Shimei has like an alter ego that possesses him from time to time. I do also like. I get that they were kids and kids aren't the best at communicating. That should be kept in mind. But I do feel like Shmei wasn't very proactive in the way that he treated Moran to help Moran realize that he liked him back. And maybe it's me being biased now, because I do think he left some hints, but I I can't help but feel a little bit like he took Moran's kindness for granted. Shimei knew well his own worth. His looks and his temper were both better than Chuaning's. In fact, very few people in the entire cultivation world could match him in terms of beauty. But right now, he suddenly felt rather uncertain. He knew that, despite Moran's fickle and flirtatious behavior in his youth, acting as if he cared only for looks, it was all a ruse. In truth, the most precious thing to Moran was genuine sentiment. If someone were to give him a teal of copper, he would repay them with 1,000 gold. Now that the bitterness of the past misunderstandings between him and his Shizun had been dispelled, Chuaning's kindness to Moran was not something Shimei could compete against. The thought brought a sudden chill to his heart, and he snapped his head up to look at the faces of the other two in the candlelight. One drank wine with his head bowed and his expression mild, phoenix eyes translucent as water, lashes soft as mist. The other smiled as he watched the former, cheek propped up in a hand and eyes glimmering. In those eyes, the candlelight reflected the snow of the early spring layered upon an open balcony, pear blossom pear blossoms blooming under the clear moonlight. The fluttering of lashes resembled ripples spreading across the mirrored surface of the lake, sweeping across glittering stars and untold feelings, likely unknown even to the bearer of those eyes. What a description, damn! In his moment of distraction, Shimei accidentally bumped his chopstick with his elbow, sending them clattering to the floor and snapping himself out of his daze. He bent down to pick them up with a muttered apology, but he paused when he leaned over. The chopsticks had landed right next to Moran's boots, faintly glittering as they lay there, quiet, waiting to be retrieved. He could have asked the waiter for another pair, but Shimei never liked bothering others, or perhaps, faced with such a demotion and status, even the most mild and even-tempered person would feel a little wronged, a little at a loss. Or maybe it was nothing so complicated. After all, a person's actions really were often just a matter of passing thoughts. In that moment, the opportunity presented itself, and Shmei really did want to gauge how much Moran cared for him now. So after a few seconds of hesitation, he made up his mind. He ducked his head, extended his fair, slender hand to pick up the chopsticks by Moran's feet. The chopstick really had fallen too close. It was completely natural and unavoidable that the back of Shmei's hand would brush against Moran's lower leg as he retrieved them. Okay, I'm trying to see Shmei's vision here, like how that is going to prove anything. It's an interesting approach. To me, the only times when he was proactive was when he felt he was losing Moran's attention or affection. That is very much what I felt as well. I felt so awkward when I read that. Yeah, it's. I don't want to be too harsh on him because I just don't know where I stand with Shimei. But something's keeping me from just feeling bad for him. Like, generally, it's very easy to just feel bad for someone when you know where they fit into a picture. Because I don't know how well-intentioned or ill-intentioned he is, it is a bit hard of me. Okay, chapter 133. Shizun has the purest mind. I mean, he does indeed. How we can count how long it took him to try and figure out what was it? The length of the Heroes of the Cultivation World was. I can't even remember what the booklet's title was, but that took him a good while to figure out. Moran was taking a sip of the pear blossom white when he felt something brush against his leg. He reflexively tried to inch his leg away, but before he could, the contact became unmistakable, pressing against him as it grazed past. Caught off guard, he hadn't fully processed what had happened until Shimei straightened and he saw, on the beautiful face, the light pink flush, and the way he had his lips pressed into a thin line and his brows knitted as if something was on his mind. Only then did Moran realize, a moment ago, was that? Moran choked and burst into a violent coughing fit. In his mind, Shimei had always been as the untrodden snow in the spring, the new moon atop the branch, to be appreciatively gazed upon from a distance and not to be frivolously touched in any way. He loved Shimei to death and would happily die for him, but he'd rarely had any dirty thoughts where he was concerned, much less put such thoughts into action. Had this pure, untainted person just felt him up? I mean, that's one way to phrase it, oh my goodness. The thought shocked Moran to the core, and he shook like a rattled drum, horrified. Chuaning frowned. What's wrong with you? Nothing! And right in front of Shizun too? Surely not. That didn't seem like something Shimei would do. Moran's expression grew yet more confounded, but it wasn't an awed surprise, more like an awful surprise. After several seconds spent calming his nerves, he heard Shimei call out lightly, "Waiter, excuse me, these chopsticks are dirty. Can I trouble you for a new pair?" The waiter came when he was called, and left to fetch replacements. Moran nervously turned his head, only to come face to face with Shimei's mild features and the same calm gaze as always, as if he had fully imagined the bashful blush earlier. Sensing Moran's attention, Shimei lifted his own peach blossom eyes to return Moran's glance with a subtle smile. "What is it?" "Nothing, nothing. The chopsticks landed in an inconvenient spot," Shimei said. "Right by your foot." "Oh." Moran heaved a sigh of relief and felt his heart settle back into place. He was overthinking things, of course. He thought to make some idle chat with Shimei to disperse the tension, but Shimei had already turned away and stood to ladle the soup. Still feeling guilty about his misgivings a moment ago, Moran said, "Here, let me help you." "That's all right, I've got it." Shimei pulled back his sleeve as he spoke and calmly ladled out the 3 delicacy soups for himself. Moran had placed the soup where it was, close to Chuaning and far from Shimei. It seemed reasonable while they were all seated, but now that Shimei was standing to reach it, it became immediately clear how far the dish was from him. He had to stretch his arm across the entire width of the table. 1 ladleful, 2 ladlesful, slow, unmeasured. Moran watched in silence. Shimei said nothing when he met Moran's uneasy gaze, only smiling slightly as he continued ladling. Feeling a bit awkward, Moran waited for Shimei to finish, then asked Chuaning if he wanted the soup. Chuaning declined, so he pushed it to the middle of the table, neither too close nor too far from anyone. Here were his esteemed teacher and his favorite person. There shouldn't have been any preference in the first place. "Mm-hmm." Partway through the meal, Shimei suddenly said, "Aran, you've really grown so much. You're no longer that disciple who used to make Shizun angry all the time. So since we're all here today, there's something I want to tell you and an apology I want to make to Shizun. What are you about to do, Shimei? I'm scared. Seeing how serious Shimei looked, Moran gave him his full attention. What is it? Do you remember the first time I brought you wontons? Shimei said. The bowl of wontons wasn't made by me. I never was any good making those. It was... Moran smiled. Oh, that. And here I was worried it was something serious. I figured that out a long time ago. Did you? Shimei's pretty eyes opened wide in surprise. He turned to look at Chuaning, who was minding his own business drinking his wine. Did Shizun tell you? Nope. Saw it for myself right before going to the underworld. Moran was about to elaborate when Chuaning set down his cup, cleared his throat, and shot him a cool, stern glance. Moran knew how thin-skinned he was. He didn't want others to know about his soft underbelly, so he said, Anyway, I found out about the whole thing 5 years ago. It's kind of a long story, so I won't get into it. Shimei nodded. That's just as well. He turned to Chuaning. Shizun back then, when you didn't want to take the wontons to Aran yourself and had me do it instead. I didn't think much of it, but as I watched the misunderstanding between you two deepen over time, I felt terrible. I wanted to find an opportunity to clear it up with Aran, but every time I tried, I couldn't find the words. Convenient that you find it now. I'm kind of a bit worried. To be honest, I was being selfish. Aside from the young master, Aran is my only close friend at Shizun Peak. I was afraid that he'd be unhappy if he found out, so... It's fine. I didn't say not to tell him. You didn't do anything wrong. Still, I feel really bad about it. It's like I took credit for Shizun's kindness. Shizun, I'm sorry. Shimei dropped his gaze to the table. A moment later he added, Aran, I'm sorry to you as well. Moran had never blamed Shimei for this, even if his initial fondness for him had blossomed due to that mix-up. Shimei had been genuinely good to him in all the time afterward, not to mention that Shimei had only been doing as Chuaning asked. It wasn't as if he was intentionally trying to steal credit. He said hastily, No, don't worry about it. It's all in the past anyway. Moran stared at Shimei under the candlelight. He'd never seen the face in his past life. Shimei had died early, his life cut short, wilted before it could bloom, becoming the great sorrow of his lifetime. He hadn't been given the chance to discover that. So this was what Shimei would have looked like if he'd lived to be 24, tall and slender, with a face as fair as jade and a pair of warm peach blossom eyes that were clear and glistening. He appeared so gentle that even his anger would probably be soft and mellow. Moran's tightly clenched heart relaxed by degrees, and he secretly sighed in relief. He suddenly felt very giddy, his heart warm and settled. Compared to Shimei at 19, this 24-year-old felt a little like a stranger. They were no longer so intimate as they used to be. Maybe this unfamiliarity was the reason a thought as ridiculous as Shimei feeling up his leg even crossed his mind. Or you're smarter than you're giving yourself credit for. I don't know if smarter is the right word there, but... But Moran was sure that he'd get used to it in time. And as for the matter of romantic sentiment, he didn't want to force it. Whatever happened would happen. For 5 years he had wandered, barely leaving a trail. Yet he'd still had a couple of close calls. Whether or not the fake Gurchen had a hand in any of those incidences, he didn't know. But it was a fact that the person behind the events at Butterfly Town and elsewhere had neither revealed themselves nor been caught. Moran was sure there would be trouble down the line, and he knew better than to let his guard down. He was going to keep the two people beside him safe and sound, even at the cost of life. Great! We love that for you, Moran. I'm not at all concerned. And again, what if the fake Gurchen is hiding within Shimei? I don't know why I keep theorizing that, but it just feels like it would be the thing that hurts the most. And knowing Meat Bun, she is gonna go for the thing that hurts the most. So unless the fake Gurchen is hiding in Chuaning, which would just hurt ever so more than Shimei, I don't think there is a more painful option than Shimei at this point. I feel like I have trust issues. Okay, anyway. Thus Moran set his heart at ease for a moment. Little did he know that the inner demon never did rest, but turned to harass another as soon as it had released its grip on him. Perhaps because of how much he'd eaten at dinner, Chuaning grew sleepy soon after he returned to Soshan Peak. He had originally planned to work through the night finishing the blueprint for a new mechanism he was designing, but he'd only made it halfway through before the yawns hit. Try as he might, eventually he could go on no longer and fell into bed, blinking sleepily. He passed out without even changing his clothes. Please tell me he's not going to remember the past. His sleep was murky, filled with an absurd dream. First, about the size ranking of the cultivation world's young heroes. There we go, that was the title. Then about that firm-toned body he'd seen in Melodic Springs. In the dim light of the candle, Chuaning's brows twitched into a frown, as if trying to free himself from the shameless dream, only to inadvertently sink deeper in. And then he had that dream again, the one from before. A certain peak that looked nothing like the one he knew, a loyalty hole that was and yet wasn't. An adult Mowayer grasping him by the jaw, looking at him with venomous mocking eyes as he said those obscene things. Let me sleep with you and I'll agree to your terms. This Mowayer was different from Moran, he knew. His expressions were too crazed, his handsome face too pale. His skin wasn't tanned the color of wheat. Get down on your knees and suck me off. The disjointed words came in fragments from the depths of a nightmare. It felt like something in his head was about to break apart, inches away from breaking free of its chains and charging towards him. A chill ran down his spine. Yet, for some reason, he also felt inexplicably flustered. In his dream, he watched as Moran closed in on him and tore at his clothes, the sharp sound of fabric ripping clearer than ever. Then it all went black, as if he was sinking into a quagmire. The dream cut off there, the way it had countless times before. Always before, he had managed to return to sound slumber after the dream, with no further disturbance. Yet for some reason, today, his vision gradually grew light again after that point. Chuaning looked around, but the new dream was so hazy, it was like trying to peer through the layer of mist. He couldn't clearly see his surroundings, only that it was scarlet everywhere. In contrast, his sense of smell and touch gradually grew sharper, becoming even more acute than usual. Why am I feeling stressed? He was suddenly assailed by indiscernible heated arousal, and he saw a rugged body moving above him, pressing down against him and rocking. Okay. Startled, Chuaning instinctively tried to struggle free, but it was as if his body didn't belong to him at all, but to the him of the stream. He could feel himself trembling, and he could hear the man's rough breathing, the hot puffs of air against his ear, the lips that brushed his earlobe over and over. Yet neither kissed it nor took it in to suck. Okay. Well then. Chuaning turned his head. He was lying on a large, soft bed that creaked and swayed with their movements, and he could smell the musk of the beast pelt spread across the sheets. In the vague fuzziness of the dream, he tried to grasp the bed cover, but was the bed cover with a questing hand, but didn't have the strength to move. The man atop him was vicious, holding nothing back, as though he intended to tear him apart. He heard a moan from his own throat, hoarse and strangled. He shook his head desperately, trying to writhe away, but the man was too strong, so strong Chuaning felt, as if the man could crush him in his hand. He felt numbness spread across his scalp as his entire body shook uncontrollably. This sounds awful. And my brain is going into 5,000 different places, none of them pleasant. I'm really scared that this is kind of more than just a dream in no sense. Perhaps, wow, now I'm struggling. Okay, let's try that again. Perhaps the dream had been too realistic and too draining. Chuaning slept until the sun was high the next day, then spent a long while lying in bed, staring into nothingness. When he turned his head, he seemed to still smell the scent of the beast pelt from that green, musky and sweet. Then he blinked, and he was back in his black sandalwood bed in the red lotus pavilion, and everything was perfectly fine, with nothing out of the ordinary, except... I hate that except... Chuaning froze, then slowly looked down in mute disbelief. The Yuheng elder... Is he sporting morning wood? Like, is that what we're about to read here? The Yuheng elder, who had spent many years practicing asceticism on account of his cultivation method, and who rarely ever experienced physical arousal, discovered that he actually, shamefully, had morning wood. Oh my word, they used the exact words I use. That's hilarious. Had his years of ascetic training been eaten by a dog? And those dreams last night? What the hell was that? Why did he dream of such absurd things? How did it even happen? Surely not just from seeing Moran's body that one time at Melodic Springs, then accidentally reading that trashy book and with that truly awe-inspiring garbage. Oh goodness. Chuaning's expression darkened. He buried his face in his hands and rubbed vigorously, but his expression hadn't lightened any when he looked back up. What was wrong with him? Chuaning pressed his lips together and decided to take a soak in the cold lotus pond to cool himself off. But before his toes had touched the ground, he felt a ripple in the barrier of the red lotus pavilion. He had a visitor. Oh no. He immediately paled and yanked the quilt up to cover his lower half. The caller approached quickly, probably using Qinggong. Soon he heard 2 knocks at the door. Shizun, are you up yet? I can't decide if I would prefer it to be Moran or Shumeng, because Shumeng would be delightfully clueless about anything ever, but Moran would just be the better scene, I feel. Sorry. The voice sounded just like the one in his dream, except the one in his dream had been deeper and throatier, steeped in a fervent, bottomless lust. The voice outside the door now was gentle and respectful, even a little worried, probably because of how uncharacteristically late Chuaning had slept. The sound of that voice smashed through the wall between dream and reality. Chuaning leaned against the bed, clutching the quilt to himself. The voice at the door brought back the way they were intertwined in the dream, and their surging motions, rousing his passions into a turbulent tide and making it even harder for him to calm himself. Oh my goodness, this is such a mess. He had just resolved to lie back down and pretend to be asleep when he heard Moran say through the door, Shizun, are you in there? I'm coming in if you don't mind. I'm coming in. It was such a simple, normal phrase, but it made Chuaning think of the way the man had laid atop him in the dream, lips parting and closing. The way that virile body had felt so hot, Chuaning was sure he would be burned. The person had said between gasps, "Relax, I'm coming in." Chuaning's face was red hot. He sat dazed in bed with his clothes a disheveled mess and a fire burning him up from the inside. Fierce denial lived in his eyes, but it was like gravel on the shoals with sharp points that would ward ships off in a bitter cold of winter. But when the snow melted in the spring and the water rose, washing over the jagged edges in flowing, glimmering streams, it no longer seemed half so threatening. He had rarely ever been so mortified and helpless, nor had he ever felt such intense desire. Chuaning stared ahead in a stupor, only snapping to his senses when Moran pushed the door open to come inside. By then it was already far too late to feign sleep. Thus, the sight that greeted Moran when he walked in was that of Chuaning, sitting up in bed, inky black hair draped loosely around him in a sharp contrast to his face, luminous as the radiant surface of a frozen lake in the sun. His eyes and brows appeared even more stern than usual, and when he lifted his eyes, the look he directed to Moran was like the light glancing off the frosty edge of a barely drawn blade. But, too, there was a touch of red at the corners, so that the light was tinged with allure. Its ferocity was woven through with chagrin, as if he'd just suffered at someone's hands and had endured unspeakable deeds. His eyes were filled with indignation and a glassy hint of wetness. Moran's breathing slowed, and he stared wordlessly at Chuaning, this man who was like a tender bud growing out of a thorny thicket. He felt as if a heavy rock had been dropped into his chest, sending waves splashing high. Okay, I mean, yeah, sure. Let me just quickly check where we're at. Like, the thing is, right? Moran has seen Chuaning in every single position and everything like that. So he probably, maybe, would recognize Chuaning's like cues of embarrassment or flusteredness or things like that because he's been exposed to that before. So I kind of think that Chuaning is gonna have a really hard time hiding anything like this from him. I'm not sure. We're on to a new chapter now. I'm trying to decide if we should do the 10-minute break now. I know it's a bit early, and then just carry through until the next hour after that, or if I continue now until the hour and then we take the break like normal. We are on page 160 now. Well, 161. Shizun sure can eat. Chapter 134. I'm not sure. What do you guys think? Because I'm not sure when the next chapter is going to be. I don't even think this thing has an index. And I kind of don't want to check the index because I don't want to spoil myself or anything. Okay, let's take the quick break now. I think that might be easiest. Also, hi. And then we'll be back at 2:2 2 minutes to the hour. I'm so sorry. Like, I went 3 minutes over. That was, oh no. Okay, we're back. We're getting right into it. Yeah. I don't know why my time management today is just not doing what it's supposed to be doing. Okay, I hope the audio is still okay. Should still be fine, theoretically. Whew, sorry. We are on chapter 134, Shizun sure can eat, page 161. Moran said nothing for a long interval, the jut of his throat merely bobbing as he swallowed. He was drowning in torrential desire, clinging desperately to a piece of driftwood to keep himself afloat as he thought in a stutter. Respect and cherish him. This is glorious. Oh my word. Oh my goodness. Okay. Respect as in respect and cherish. Hold on. Respect as in respect and cherish. Cherish as in respect and cherish. Do not defile, do not harm, do not have any unnecessary feelings, and definitely do not commit those outrageous acts he had committed in the past life to humiliate his Shizun. Oh my word, why is this so funny? It shouldn't be funny. As the inside of his chest burned like hot lava, Moran silently repeated that litany of 4 or 5 times before he finally had wits enough to step into the room with feigned composure and greet Chuaning with a smile. Shizun, so you were here after all. Why didn't you just say something? Just woke up, Chuaning replied dryly. The dryness was no joke. His throat was dry, and so too was his desire, so dry that a single stray spark might set off an uncontrollable blaze. These two are hopeless for each other, and I'm living for it. Oh my goodness. Moran really needs to realize that he can both respect Chuaning and desire him sexually at the same time. This is just so... yeah, I mean, I think the problem here is the fact that he, I think, links so much of his sexual desire to the awful acts he committed against Chuaning in the past, that it's gonna take some work to realize that he can have that desire without reverting to who he was in the past. Moran was holding a heavy, 5-layered bamboo food box. He thought about putting it on the table, but it was covered in a mess of files, drills, joinery, nails, and all manner of blueprints. There was no other option but to carry the box to Chuaning's bed. Chuaning's morning grumpiness seemed even worse today than usual. He was visibly agitated as he glanced at Moran and snapped, "What do you want?" Shizun woke up pretty late. There's not much food left at Mengpo Hall now. I had nothing else to do, so I made breakfast to share with Shizun. Oh, Chuaning. He opened the box as he spoke and began to unpack it. The topmost level had a plate of sauté mushrooms, the next a plate of tender stir-fried saltus with water chestnuts, then silk thread rolls and honey glazed sweet lotus roots, and on the very bottom were 2 bowls of rice, each grain plump and translucent, as well as a bowl of bamboo shoots and ham soup. My goodness, this man can cook apparently. Like, I mean, I knew he could cook, but he can cook. I love them so much. Yeah, like, these moments are just the best. 2 bowls of rice. Chuaning was a little speechless. Did Moran really think he was that much of a glutton? The table is a little messy. Does Shizun want to eat in bed, or should I tidy the table and move the food over? Of course, Chuaning didn't like eating in bed, But the quilt was the only thing hiding his yet to subside arousal from view. He waved away. He wavered between decorum and dignity, then firmly chose the latter. I mean, it's Chuaning. I'll be surprised. Um, there are too many things on the table. It'll take too long to tidy up. I'll eat here. Moran nodded with a smile. Okay. It must be said that Moran was quite a skilled cook. He had been good 5 years ago, but now he was easily better than most ordinary chefs. What's more, Moran also somehow knew Chuaning's tastes incredibly well. He knew that Chuaning didn't really like congee in the morning, made sure to pick straw mushrooms for the mushroom dish, stuffed the silk thread rolls with sweet potato rather than bean paste, used only the tenderest tips of the bamboo shoots, and chose a cut of ham with a generous amount of fat, red and white streaked like dusky clouds across the horizon. Moran had never asked him what he liked to eat, yet he had made everything just right, as if they'd already lived together for many years. Mm-hmm. Chuaning was delighted with the meal. Though he maintained his cool expression, his chopsticks never stopped shuffling for even a moment. When he finished the last sip of soup and looked up, he saw Moran sitting at the edge of the bed with one foot propped on a chair nearby, cheek in hand, as he watched him with a faint smile. Oh my goodness, Moran is so besotted and he really just does not realize it yet. He is the epitome of clueless. Yeah, it's understandable considering how their sexual relationship was in the past. Moran associates his desire with that, although the desire itself is not what's harmful or disrespectful. Exactly. Exactly, exactly. um, what is it? Chuaning instinctively took out a handkerchief to wipe his mouth. Is there something on my face? No, Moran said. I'm just happy to see Shizun liked the food. A little perturbed, Chuaning said in a mild tone. It was good, but there was too much rice. One bowl will do next time. Moran seemed like he was about to say something, but in the end decided to let it lie. He grinned at him instead, revealing a row of neat, pearly teeth. Got it. What a dummy this man was, so careful and meticulous about serious things, but absolutely oblivious when it came to the day to day. He'd completely failed to notice that there were two pairs of chopsticks at the bottom of the box. He'd eaten 2 servings of food all by himself, then turned around to tell him that there was too much, that he was a bit stuffed. Yeah, no, like I think because Moran did mention I thought we could eat together or something like that, and Chuaning just completely missed that. Oh my goodness. Yeah, no. Um. Okay, where were we? The more Moran thought about it, the funnier it became, until he put a hand to his brow and let his lashes droop as they quivered with laughter. What's so funny? Nothing, nothing. Moran didn't want to embarrass him. His Shizun valued his pride above all else, after all, so he quickly changed the subject. Shizun, I just remembered something that I forgot to ask you about yesterday. What is it? On my way back, I heard the great master Huajie left the day before you came out of seclusion. Correct. So you didn't even see him after waking up, right? I did not. Moran sighed. Then it's not a matter of Shizun being discourteous at all. I overheard some people on the outside saying that Shizun had no manners, but even though Great Master Huaji had spent the last 5 years bringing Shizun back to life, he didn't even get a thanks for his troubles. But if the Great Master left first himself, It would be totally unreasonable to expect Shizun to run over to Wubai Temple the instant he woke up, to kneel outside shedding tears of gratitude or something. Those gossips are so annoying. Now that we've cleared that up, I'll have Uncle address it tomorrow at tomorrow's morning assembly. He's being protective in his own way, and I love that. No need, Chuaning interjected. Why not? Chuaning paused. The great master and I have long since burned our bridges, he said. I wouldn't have thanked him even if he were still here when I woke up. Moran was taken back. How come? I know Shizun chose to leave the temple of your own violation and had already severed the master-disciple relationship with Great Master Huazhe, but he still came to your rescue in your time of need, and things between him and me are hard to explain, Chuaning cut in, nor do I care to discuss it. If people want to call me a cold-blooded ingrate with no conscience, then so be it. It's only the truth. How is that the truth? Moran fretted. You're clearly not that kind of person. Chuaning's head snapped up, and his expression iced over, blood pumping like a dragon touched on its inverted scale. Moran, he said, what do you even know about me? Moran saw Chuaning's bright eyes, cold as frost. Here was a man who never let his guard down, who always kept his distance. For a moment, he wanted nothing more than to disregard all consequences and say, I know a lot of things about you, I understand, and even if there are some things in your past I don't know about, I'm willing to listen, to share the burden with you. Don't just keep everything to yourself, locked away behind those walls. Aren't you tired? Isn't it difficult? But what right did he have to say any of that? He was Chuaning's disciple. Be not impetuous, be not irreverent. In the end, Moran said nothing. Several seconds passed in silence, and Chuaning's tense frame, taut as a bowstring, finally relaxed by degrees. He sighed, as if depleted, and said, People are not saints, and one cannot fight against fate. Certain things can't be changed even if you want them to be. Forget it. Don't bring up Master Huazhe to me anymore. You may leave. I'm going to change. Yes. Moran quietly collected the meal box, his head hanging. As he reached the door, he suddenly asked, Shizun, you're not mad at me, are you? Chuaning shot him a glare. Why would I be mad at you? Chuaning shot him a glare. Why would I be mad at you? Chuaning. This man. Moran beamed brightly. That's good, that's good. Then I can come again tomorrow. Suit yourself. Then, as if something had just occurred to him, Chuaning added, in the future, there's no need to say things like, I'm coming in. Moran blinked. Why not? You're going to come in anyway. What's the point in saying something like that? Chuaning was again worked up, but whether it was due to Moran's untimely bout of purity or his own uselessly reddened face was anyone's guess. Chuaning didn't get out of bed until after the still perplexed Moran had left. He didn't bother with shoes, but padded barefoot to the bookcase and moved a bamboo scroll. He unrolled it and stared at the words written there with an unreadable expression for a long, silent minute. Huazhe had left this bamboo scroll by his pillow before leaving with a spell that prevented anyone aside from Chuaning from opening it. The writing on the front was neat and straight and read, confidential, for Chu Gongzi only. His own teacher calling him Chu Gongzi. Ridiculous. The letter was neither long nor short. It listed some things Chuaning should be mindful of after waking up, before going to great length, entreating him to do one thing. Great Master Huazhe asked Chuaning to meet him at Dragonblood Mountain near Wubei Temple when he had recovered. He had written in earnest terms that he was getting on in years and was not long for this world, and that he felt immense guilt over certain things of the past. Chuaning, please go to him. Please don't regret not going. Now I'm stressed. This old monk hopes to speak with you before his passing. You still carry that old injury, and on hearing that its adverse effect forced you to go into seclusion for 10 days every 7 years, this old monk feels truly remorseful. If you are willing to come to Dragonblood Mountain, it can be healed. However, the healing spell carries its own risks. You must also bring along a disciple with dual wood and fire elemental spiritual energy to stabilize the array. Old injury, Dragonblood Mountain. Chuaning's brow furrowed deep, and his nails nearly drew blood from his palm. Healed? How? Something once destroyed, once lost. Those 164 days spent at Dragonblood Mountain. How could any of it ever be recovered? How masterly did Hajir think he was, that he could smooth out a scar at this deep? His eyes snapped open as gold light cracked in his palm. The sturdy, mossled bamboo of the lesser instantly shattered into powder in his hand and puffed into the air. He would never set so much as a single foot into Wubai Temple for as long as he lived, nor would he refer to Hajir as Shizun ever again. Why does this hurt so much? 4 days had passed in the blink of an eye since Chuaning came out of seclusion. On the 4th day, Shu Zhengyong called him to Loyalty Hall and handed him a letter of commission. Chuaning shook open the letter and read the few simple lines written on it, then looked up and said, "I think you gave me the wrong one." "Huh?" Shu Zhengyong took the letter and read it over again himself and then replied, "Nope, this is it." Chuaning narrowed his eyes. "It says they need help with harvest at Yuliang village." "What? Do you not know how?" Chuaning's glare intensified. Shu Zhengyong's eyes went wide. "Wait, you seriously don't know how?" Backed into a corner by the line of questioning, Chuaning sheathed. No, not in this book. Seethed. Isn't there anything normal, like putting down demons or whatnot? Shu Zhengyong said, things have been pretty peaceful lately, so there actually aren't any places troubled by demons right now. Yeah, it'll be fine. Renar is going with you, so you can just sit on the sidelines and take it easy while he does all the work. Harvesting some rice or threshing some millets, no big deal to the young and spry. So this is where that came from? Where are we? This bit. Oh my goodness. I was not prepared. I hope you guys can see it properly. I don't think I'm doing a very good job, but it's stunning. Chuaning's inky brows drew low. Since when did Shizun Peak start taking odd jobs like these? Since always. Like when Granny Wang's cat got stuck in a tree in Wuchang town. Shimei goes to get it down. It's just that there are usually tougher issues to deal with, so I never bother you with the small ones, Shu Zhengyong said. Besides, didn't you just wake up? I was gonna send someone else, but I thought you'd be bored just sitting around. But even then, I don't want to harvest rice. Chuaning narrowly avoided blurting out that he didn't know how to harvest rice. Like I said, Renar will be there to help you out, Shu Zhengyong insisted. Just consider it a chance to relax and stroll around a bit. Can I not relax and stroll around just fine without taking an assignment? I mean, I guess, Shu Zhengyong scratched his head, but Yuliang village is pretty close to Butterfly Town, and that heavenly rift Renar patched up last time. He's not you after all, so why don't you check on it while you're there and see if there's anything that needs reinforcing? Only then did Chuaning finally see a need for him to go. He took the letter without another word and turned to leave Loyalty Hall. Oh, okay. Oh. Let's see what's going on here. Yeah, no, there's definitely, and also like call their lover Shizun. Both of them do all of these things, possess all of these things as well, shall we say? Okay, we have just a bit over 30 minutes left. I would say about 40. Chapter 135. Shizun studies on the sly. What do you study on the sly, Shizun? Tell us. Yuliang village was tiny. Many of the villagers were getting on in years, and there were very few young people. So during harvest time, they would commonly ask the cultivators from Shizun Peak for help. Any other sect would have completely ignored requests like these that had nothing to do with cultivation. But Xu Zhengyong and his older brother had started Shizun Peak from scratch and had endured their share of hardship in their youth. Rumor had it that, growing up, most of their meals had been taken at a table of generous neighbors. Thus, Xu Zhengyong didn't have it in him to refuse such humble requests from the old tenant farmers, and diligently attended to them, sending disciples to help every time. The village was far enough from Shizun Peak that walking was inconvenient, but close enough that taking a carriage would be unnecessarily ostentatious. Thus, Xu Zhengyong had two fine horses prepared for Moran and Chuaning. It was late autumn, and the foliage had revealed its full colours. When Chuaning came down the stairs to the main gate, he was greeted by the sight of Moran standing beneath a tall maple tree, in scarlet frost-adorned leaves rustling in the wind like the sheen on fine brocade or the splashing of red carp. These descriptions, I cannot deal with Meatbun's beautiful descriptions. But I have to say, like, this is not giving that. If like that description feels as if it belongs in volume 5, which has the red cover, and I know I'm being pedantic, but it's just the way my brain works, unfortunately. um Moran held the reins of a black horse while the white horse nuzzled his cheek. He was in the middle of teasing them with a tuft of, I cannot pronounce it, alfalfa flowers when he heard the sound of footsteps approaching. Fragments of red fluttered down as he turned to look over his shoulder, brightly beaming between the dancing leaves. Shizun! Chuaning's footsteps slowed, then came to a stop on the last few steps. Sunlight flitted through the luxuriant canopy to fall on the moss-covered stone. He stared at the man standing there, not so far away. Perhaps it was because they were setting off to do farm work together. But Moran wasn't wearing Shizun Peak's disciple uniform today, nor was he wearing those white robes from when he first returned. Instead, he had on black uh, raiment with wrapped wrist guards, simple attire that accentuated his slim waist, long legs, and broad shoulders. He had a good figure, especially in the upper torso, where his open collar revealed a firm, toned chest in the gold of honey, rising and falling with each breath. I'm trying to remember what was Moran's outfit when he was Tai Jun, because I'm wondering if this outfit's gonna give Chuaning flashbacks. Well, dream flashbacks. If the show, if the showness of Shu Meng's customary getup with its sparkling silver armor was like a peacock fanning its tail, then this look of Moran's had a quiet allure, an innocent kind of allure, an uncomplicated kind of allure. In other words, the air it gave off said, I'm a decent, upright person. I've never teased or provoked anyone in my life, and the only thing I know is honest work. Chuaning looked him up and down several times before opening his mouth to say, Moran? The strapping young man replied with a smile, What is it, Shizun? Chuaning's face was deadpan. Aren't you cold with your lapels open that wide? After a moment of surprise, Moran came to the conclusion that his Shizun was expressing concern for him and felt suddenly giddy. And oh goodness, can we just protect him? He tossed the alfalfa back into the hay basket for the horses, dusted off his hands, and bounded up the blue stone steps to stand charmingly in front of Chuaning, grabbing him by the wrist before he could react. Not cold at all. Actually, I'm kind of warm from rushing around all morning. He grinned guilelessly as he pressed Chuaning's hand to his own chest. See, Shizun? Oh my word, this man is clueless. It felt scalding. The young man's chest was hot to the touch. Combined with that strong heartbeat and those star-bright eyes, Chuaning could feel his entire back going numb. He ripped his hand away as his expression grew stormy. Indecent. Moran misunderstood. Is it sweaty? He thought that Chuaning wasn't into men. After all, their entanglements in his past life had been brought about by coercion on his part, so he didn't think Chuaning had any interest in him, and remembering Chuaning's love of cleanliness and dislike of touching people, chalked his Shizun's annoyance up to his sweatiness. That's fair. I guess so. Oh my goodness. Oh no. Moran felt embarrassed and scratched his head as he said, That was thoughtless of me. Had he looked closely, he would have seen the blush at the base of Chuaning's elegant neck, and the glimmer of affection beneath those coolly downcast lashes. But he had missed the narrow window of opportunity, and Chuaning wasn't about to give him another. Chuaning descended the slippery bluestone steps in his snow-white shoes, headed directly for the black horse, and mounted it in a single graceful motion, smooth as flowing water, with the sunlight with the sunlight gilding the land and red autumn leaves as far as the eye could see. The white-robed man, sitting atop the tall black horse, glanced over his shoulder as his disciples stole on the ground. His face was like cool jade, exuding an air of loftiness. Ever the sharp and handsome Yu Hung elder. I'm off. Keep up. Well, that's courteous. With that, those long legs tightened round the horse, spurring it into a gallop. Moran stood rooted in place for several moments. He picked up the bamboo basket, still half full with the alfalfa flowers he'd been feeding the horses, and tied it to the white horse's saddle, before leaping up himself, caught between laughter and tears. But Shizun, the black horse is mine. Don't just... Shizun, wait for me. I kind of love the fact that they didn't do that it's kind of like yin-yang opposites thing instead of matchy-matchy. But also, there was something else I wanted to mention. Oh, I have mixed feelings about the fact that we're now getting where before the miscommunication caused Moran to constantly perceive Chuaning's actions in the worst way possible. We've kind of like now upgraded to the point where there's still miscommunication, but now it's about Moran not noticing that Chuaning is attracted to him, and I'm like, it's better than what we had, so I shouldn't be greedy, but the pain, the slow burn, this is the true essence of a slow burn, I feel. The white horse nuzzling against Moran are Chuaning's true feelings. I love that take, oh my goodness. I have such beautiful merch with them on horses. What? That is so cool. Oh my goodness, I only have one tiny merch item that relates to ErHa, and I was so stoked when I was able to find it, but it's so difficult to find any Danmei merch in South Africa, so I was over the moon when I found any Danmei merch at all. And to be fair, it's really cute Danmei merch. It's actually by the uh, woman who translated the Heaven Official's Blessing novels to English. I didn't even, like, I realized in hindsight that it was her, and then I asked my friend to to get me her autograph, and my friend was very kind and she actually did manage to do it, and I feel so like thankful, but also like I feel so bad for having asked her, because she's like me, I can't approach people and ask things like that. So the fact that she was willing to do that for me, like, I love my friend so much. She's amazing. Anyway, sorry, that was a tangent. Um, where were we? Yep. Plus miscommunication of Moran with himself. True, true, true. Here in Russia, there's a lot. Ironically, even for Mordu, which I showed in Discord. Oh yes, right. Which isn't as popular as MXTX's works. Still, that is so cool. I'm so envious. um, okay. On the backs of their swift horses, they arrived at Yuliang village within an hour. A few acres of rice paddies stretched along the border of the village, and the breeze rolled into waves through the fields of golden grain. Some 30 odd farmers toiled away in the paddies. Due to the shortage of helping hands, young and old alike were working the fields, backs bent low and trouser legs rolled up as they swung their sickles, beads of sweat dripping from their faces with the exertion. Without any delay, Moran found the village chief, handed him the letter of commission from Shizhen, then stepped into a pair of hemp shoes and made for the fields. Moran had both strength and stamina aplenty, and was a cultivator to boot. Harvesting crops was no trouble for him. In less than half a day, he'd harvested 2 whole rows of rice. As the golden ears piled up next to the paddy fields, soaking up the sunlight, the sweet scent of grain wafted through the air. The sound of the farmers' sickles rustled across the plateaus, and a maiden sat on the ridge between the paddy fields, singing a leisurely farming song as she gathered the grains. The sun, setting behind a mountain, shines like a red flower, painting all 4 mountains red, oh red like peonies. A red fan to sing my beloved, sorry, a red fan to sing my love song, a hydrangea to ask my lover boy. Tugging at his belt, when are you coming? Today I have no time, tomorrow I must chop firewood. The day after I can come calling. The farmer girl blithely sang these coy lyrics in that soft little tune, and the words drifted through the air and slipped into the hearts of the listeners. Today I have no time, tomorrow I must chop firewood, the day after I can come calling. Chuaning did not go to work in the fields. Instead, he sat under a tree, drinking from a jar of hot water. His eyes followed that black-clad, hard-working silhouette in the distance as he listened. His thoughts were all over the place, and the water he swallowed seemed to flow into his chest rather than his stomach, soaking it with heat. What an obscene song, he said coldly. Then he finished the water. He rose to return the ceramic jar to the village chief, who stared hesitantly at him. Chuaning asked irritably, "What is it? Is Shenzhen not going to work the fields?" The wizened village chief was a straightforward man. He directly asked the question in his shaky voice, white beard trembling and white brows creased. "Is Shenzhen just here to oversee things?" Chuaning didn't know how to reply. Never before had he been put on the spot like this. Work the fields? Hadn't Xu Zhengyong said he could just sit on the side and watch Moran? Did he actually have to work too? He didn't know how. But the old village chief was staring at him like he still had more to say, and a couple of kids and old women nearby, having heard the exchange, turned to stare at this immaculately dressed man. Children hold nothing back. A little kid with his hair in buns asked brightly, "Granny, Granny, this Daozhang Gege is all dressed in white. How is he going to do any work in the fields?" His sleeves are so wide, another kid murmured, and his shoes are so clean. Chuaning prickled all over with awkwardness. He stood there for a moment, but he was really too thin-skinned to remain idle after what he'd heard. He grabbed a sickle and waded into the paddy fields without even removing his shoes. The slippery mud immediately clung to his feet, and the standing water rose past his ankles. Chuaning took 2 ginger steps, frowning at how slick everything felt, then tried swinging the sickle a couple of times. It was a fumbling attempt, as he knew nothing of the technique. "Ha! This Dahajang Gurgur's such a dum-dum." A pair of little kids watching from under a mulberry tree laughed with their cheeks propped in their hands. Chuaning fumed silently, his face darkening. He couldn't stand to be near these people a moment longer. He summoned all the poise he possessed to keep his handsome face straight and his pace steady as he waded through the mud in great strides towards the figure busily cutting rice in the distance. The saying went that one could always learn from others. Well, he was going to learn it on the sly. He stealthily observed Moran at work. When it came to farm work, Moran was clearly more skilled than Chuaning. He was bent over under the blazing sun, each swing of his sickle reaping sieves of golden rice that fell softly and obediently into his waiting embrace. He gathered large armfuls before tossing them into the bamboo basket behind him. So absorbed was he in the task that he didn't even notice Chuaning's approach. His gaze was focused downward as he worked diligently, his straight nose casting a shadow across his cheek as a bead of sweat trickled down. A feral scent emanated from his body, scorching and wild, muted yet fervent. Under the sunlight, his skin was like red-hot steel that had just come out of the crucible, still crackling with sparks and hissing with steam, blindingly bright, beautifully brilliant. How many poetic words can these two say about each other? I mean, I'm not complaining. Don't stop. But damn. If someone thought just like 1/10 of that about me, I'd be happy. Anyway. Standing a short distance away, Chuaning enjoyed the view for a while before abruptly realizing what he was doing. He frowned, shook his head, and muttered something under his breath, then continued wading forward with a straight face. He was going to learn, sneakily. He was just going to observe how Moran held the sickle and what angle he swung it at. He would find out why the rice was that was stiff as iron wires in his own hands became pliant and boneless, maidens in Moran's, falling so willingly and eagerly into his arms. Chuaning was so absorbed in watching that he didn't notice the frog by his foot until it leapt out with a loud ribbit and hopped off towards the ridge. Caught by surprise. Please tell me he's gonna fall into Chuaning's arms. Please, Moran's arm. Please tell me if this is about to happen. Caught by surprise, he jerked his leg back, but the paddy fields were so slippery and he was too unprepared. So it was that the great Yuheng elder tipped forward, on track for a direct faceplant into the mud, all because of a single brazen frog. With his face about to meet the mire, Chuaning had no time to cast anything, On reflex, he reached out to grab the hard-working person before him. The village maidens' singing sounded even more coquettish, tugging at his belts. When are you coming? As luck would have it, Chuaning latched onto Moran's belt and stumbled forward a few steps to fall against a broad chest that was hot to the touch and musky with masculine scent, finding himself wrapped in a pair of strong, solid arms. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. I'm not okay. Oh wow. I'm sorry, that was just too great. Probably we're gonna find out that he lost his pants in the process as well. Into the embrace he goes, like a maiden falling willingly into his embrace. Okay. Chapter 136, Shizun, Relax. Well, that sounds promising. Moran was minding his own business, reaping rice, when he felt a hand jerking his belt down from behind. That in itself was quite a shock, but it was an even bigger shock to turn around and find Chuaning, who was about to fall over. Moran hurriedly threw the sickle aside to catch him, but Chuaning had already stumbled halfway to the ground, where a supporting hand would be of no use. He had no choice. He had to grab him with both arms. No choice at all. Just fan service, it's fine. I'll survive. That person, dressed in not flashy, floating white robes and smelling faintly of high-tongue blossoms, landed solidly against his chest, and Moran reflexively closed his arms around him in an embrace, scattering ears of rice all over the ground. Shizun, what are you doing here? He asked, still shaken. You scared me. Chuaning did not respond. The paddy field is slippery, be careful. The man in his arms still didn't look up or say anything, smothered by so much awkwardness that he couldn't speak. The village maiden continued warbling mercilessly, tugging at a lover boy's belt. Hey, when are you coming? As if struck by lightning, Chuaning swiftly released Moran's belt and got back on his own feet. He took a breath, then shoved Moran away. Although his expression might have passed for calm, his eyes were frightfully bright, like rolling waves catching the sunlight. Obviously flustered, yet determinedly faking some composure. Moran suddenly noticed that Chuaning's earlobes were red. It was a pretty colour, a light pinkness to the skin, like tender peaches at the tips of branches. He thought abruptly of the way those earlobes had tasted as he sucked on them in a previous lifetime. And into the gutter he goes. Oh my goodness. The way Chuaning had trembled lightly every time, and the way that, despite his utmost unwillingness, that steel-bonded body had gone soft and yielding in his arms. Moran swallowed, his gaze unconsciously growing deep and dark. But Chuaning was absolutely livid, though it was uncertain at whom, snarling between gritted teeth. What are you staring at for? What's there to look at? Moran jolted back to reality, his blood running cold. Beast! What despicable things had he done to his Shizun out of his selfish desire in the past? With his Shizun's pride, how could he accept being taken like that? Someone as dispassionate as him was probably... someone as dispassionate as him... Okay, no, that wasn't me glitching. That is an actual typo. Let me just see. Someone as dispassionate as him probably didn't even feel desire to begin with. How dare he think about these deplorable things again? Moran mutely shook his head over and over again, like a rattled drum. What are you shaking your head for? Chuaning snapped. Am I a joke to you? Moran remained silent, but immediately stalled. He secretly snuck a glance at Chuaning. The man was clearly embarrassed, but trying to mask it with anger as he always did. Those eyes of his were a tell now that Moran was looking closely. He was probably just embarrassed to have tripped in front of his own disciple, and due to a croaking frog at that. I mean, that's part of it. You're not completely wrong. How cute. Moran couldn't help but chuckle at the thought, but the laughter only made Chuaning angrier, his brows sharp with fury as he flew into a rage. What are you laughing at? So what if I don't know how to do farm work? What's so funny about that? Nothing funny. Nope. Moran said soothingly as he tucked his smile away and adjusted his face into a serious expression. Yet he couldn't hide the smile in his eyes, bright and shining with amusement. Still, he held his laughter in. Just as it seemed that this matter was over, the frog from before puffed out its throat and let out two more self-righteous croaks, as if in show of force. Do you have a death wish, my dear frog? Moran's self-control slipped. He tried to turn away and cough into his fist to cover it, but he fumbled that too and let out a of laughter. I can't do that. I don't know why I'm struggling with that. um, Chuaning fumed mutely. He was really about to lose it. Dragging his muddied robes behind him as he made for the ridge in a towering rage, when he heard Moran call to him. There was hardly any distance between them. Moran could have just reached out and grabbed him, but he didn't, because he could still feel Chuaning's warmth against his chest and could still smell the scent of high tongue from Chuaning's robes. His heart felt mushy, like it was about to melt, but he didn't dare succumb. This person before him was so good. He wanted to treasure him, to cherish him, to revere him, as he would a god. He didn't want to hurt him any more with his vulgar desires, so he only called out, Shizun. What? Not done laughing yet? Chuaning glared sidelong at him. Moran's dimpled smile was filled not with mocking, but gentleness. Do you want to learn? I'll teach you. It's actually quite simple, and Shizun is so smart, you'll definitely pick it up right away. I mean, that's a good way to approach it. To like stroke his ego a little bit. There was something though. Something here that I wanted to talk about. Oh, this. Um, it's interesting to me because originally, when you look at the first like few volumes, whenever Moran is talking about Shimei, he has kind of this like godlike reverence for him in a sense. So it's very interesting that he's now trying to impose that same viewpoint or way of viewing Chuaning, way of viewing Shimei onto Chuaning as well. I don't know how to put this. But he's trying to copy and paste the way that he used to view Shimei onto the way he now views Chuaning, and that's not gonna work. And I find it very interesting that it's not working. I feel like that just tells you how much more he wants from this relationship with Chuaning, even if he's not fully aware of it himself yet. Okay, sorry. As Moran started to teach him how to reap the rice, Chuaning couldn't help but wonder how things had turned out this way. He had come over with the intention of learning by covert observation, so how had he ended up in an official apprenticeship? What a mess. But Moran was teaching him so seriously and attentively, and didn't even laugh at his clumsy attempts. His brows were ink black and his features were sharper and more defined than when he was younger. It should have given him a handsome and arrogant air, but his gaze was gentle and patient, as if hiding a great many burdens that weighed on him, or perhaps hiding nothing at all, only conveying a depth of tenderness, the weight of the years. Just like this, it's all in the wrist, you get it? If you know, you know. But also we're basically getting a playing pool scene without getting a playing pool scene, and thank you, meat bun. You know just what we want. A long pause, then. Chuaning tried swinging the sickle as instructed, but still couldn't quite master it. He was used to carving up stiff blocks of wood in his work, but these soft stalks of grain were somehow harder to handle. Moran observed him for a while, then reached out a toned arm and adjusted his grip on the sickle. Skin brushed skin for only an instant. Moran didn't dare touch him more than that, and neither did Chuaning dare allow it. One was a torrential stream with nowhere to go, and the other a pond that was all but dried up. They were clearly a perfect match. If only one were to go into the other, the former would no longer churn restlessly with no outlet, and the latter could be filled and watered. Parched cracks soon mended, but neither of them would do it, each hiding from the other. That's weirdly sensual, but just also weirdly beautiful. How did she do that? Moran explained from behind him. Move your fingers a little lower. Careful not to cut yourself. I know, came the stiff response. Relax a little, don't be so tense. Chuaning shifted slightly. Relax. But the more Moran said it, the more Chuaning's back tensed and his grip stiffened. Relax, relax, relax. It wasn't like he didn't want to. Easy for him to say. But Moran was hovering right next to him, and his breath practically caressed the back of his ear. Hot and heavy, carrying the man's unique, wild scent. How was he supposed to relax? For some reason, his wretched brain chose the exact moment to recall that shameful dream. They had been in a similar position then, Moran's lips beside his ear, touching it yet not, ghosting along his earlobe. He had said between panting breaths, relax a little. I can't read that. Don't clench around me so tightly. There we go. Chuaning's entire face turned red. He tried his best to squirm away from the weird thoughts, but a second wave rolled in right on the heels of the first, and he struggled free only to recall that size ranking of the Cultivation World's Young Heroes booklet instead. Chuaning's mind will never be clean again, I don't think. Chuaning couldn't make a sound. He was afraid there might be smoke rising from the top of his head, but Moran was none the wiser. Why are you so tense? I am quite relaxed. Chuaning whipped around, eyes a little teary yet filled with flames of anger. So close his glare was like a sword piercing Moran's heart. I actually feel really bad for Moran in this instance, because he has no idea what's going through Chuaning's head. Oh my goodness. The hearts of each were clearly drumming fast in their chests, but the other could not hear that drumming, no matter how hard. Not unless he were to step closer, not unless he were to press his chest against his back, not unless he were to grab his hand, bite his ear, suck on his earlobe, murmur to him between heavy breaths, relax, don't be so nervous. That just freaking transports to an entirely different scene. Only in this way would they understand each other. But Moran would never do it, and neither would Chuaning. So Moran awkwardly withdrew his hand and sheepishly straightened up, asking carefully, then, does Shizun want to try again like this? Moran flashed him another smile before picking up his own sickle and resuming his work not too far away. 2 sweeps of the sickle later, he seemed to remember something and called over his shoulder, "Shizun?" "What?" Chuaning's face was sullen. Moran pointed at his feet. "You should take off your boots." "I will not." "You might slip wearing them," Moran said earnestly. "Those boots have smooth soles. I won't always be there to catch you if you slip." Why does that feel so laden with meaning? Oh my goodness. Chuaning meandered over in a gloomy silence, then waded over to the ridge and removed his shoes and socks. He tossed them next to the haystack before treading with bare feet back into the paddy field to slog away at the rice. By noon, Chuaning had finally become more or less proficient with the sickle, his motions growing fluid. The rice reaped by Moran and himself piled into a mighty little mountain of gold. After harvesting another row, Chuaning finally felt a little fatigued and straightened up to take a deep breath and wipe his sweat with the corner of his sleeve. A light breeze swept through the golden waves of grain, bringing with it a refreshing autumn chill. He sneezed. Moran turned around immediately in concern. "Are you cold?" "I'm fine." Chuaning shook his head. "Some dust got into my nose just now." He has hay fever. Oh my goodness. Why do I love that? Oh my goodness. I know it's not like a charming thing to have if you're experiencing it. I get that. But it's just a nice, like, little detail. Stuck forever in his head. Indeed. 100%. I just want to see. Okay, I think we're gonna finish up the chapter. Moran smiled and was about to say more when the clear voice of a village maiden rang out from beneath the mulberry tree in the distance, hands cupped around her mouth as she shouted, "Lunchtime! It's lunchtime!" "It's the girl who was singing earlier," Chuaning commented without even turning to look. Moran turned and lifted a hand to shade his brow, squinting into the distance. "It really is her. Shizun? Can you tell by her voice?" All that warbling just to announce a meal. Who else could it be?" Chuaning passed the last basket of rice over to the pile as he spoke, then made for the mulberry tree. He didn't bother with his shoes. His feet were already dirty anyway. Moran shook his head with a grin, then scooped up his Shizun's abandoned boots before running to catch up. Lunch was a communal affair, cooked in a large pot, brought out by 4 or 5 women in 3 wooden barrels. The lids were lifted to reveal a barrel full of steaming rice, another of braised pork with cabbage, and one more filled with tofu and vegetable soup. Frankly, life for the common folk in the lower cultivation realm wasn't easy, and meat was considered a luxury to most. But certain peaks cultivators had come, and what kind of host would the village chief be if he fed them nothing but vegetables? I have mixed feelings about that. Thus, there was a hearty portion of cured, marbled meat in the pork and cabbage dish. The moment the lids came off, all the burly villagers, smelling that savoury aroma, had to swallow their drool. "It's not much. Shenzhen, please make do." The village chief's wife, a stocky woman in her 50s, with a brassy voice and a wide, unreserved smile. "We cure the meat and pick the vegetables ourselves. Hope ya don't mind." Moran frantically waved his hand. "Of course not." He scooped up 2 heaping bowls of rice and handed them to Shizun before fetching a 3rd bowl for himself. Chuaning peeked into the barrel and saw that the braised pork dish was scattered with a layer of chili pepper. He was still gazing apprehensively when the auntie waved him over with enthusiasm and ladled an enormous scoop of red-hot gravy into his bowl. generously ladled with bright red meat. Chuaning stared down into the bowl. This would be a delicious treat to the people of Sichuan, who loved spicy food. But to Chuaning, this bowl spelled certain doom. Yet it wasn't as if he could decline the hospitality of the villagers either. As he stood frozen in uncertainty, a hand reached over with another bowl, filled with tofu and vegetable soup. It was rather plain, but suited to Chuaning's taste. Here, swap with me, said Moran. Chuaning eyed the preferred bowl. It's fine. Eat your own. The auntie was puzzled by this exchange. Then she put two and two together and smacked her head, hollering, "Aya, can this Shenzhen not eat spicy food?" Oh no. Now he's gonna feel pressured to do it because pride. Seeing the guilt on her face, Chuaning replied, "No, I can eat a little." Grasping his chopsticks, he picked up some of the rice soaked with spicy gravy and popped it into his mouth. A few moments passed in silence, Chuaning's face growing redder by the second as everyone watched. Even the tightly pursed line of his lips began to quiver until cough, cough, cough. An earth-shaking coughing fit. Who was it who said the only unbearable things in this world were love, destitution, and sneezes? Who would say that? They had clearly forgotten about chili peppers. Chuaning had woefully overestimated himself and sorely underestimated the chilies, with the result that he now choked so badly on the spice that his entire face was beet red, and he couldn't speak at all. The adult onlookers were aghast, while the kids, being kids, giggled from behind them, earning themselves swats on the head. Moran hastily set down the bowl and chopsticks he was holding and scooped another bowl of mild soup for him. The liquid seemed to help a little, but the hot soup on top of the heavy spice made Chuaning's tongue feel like it was on fire. He looked up at Moran. His face was flushed and his eyes watery, and he said in a hoarse voice, "More." Moran? Mind out of the gutter. Mind out of the gutter. I know where you're going with this. Mind out of the gutter. More. Chuaning clearly meant more soup, but Moran felt his whole body set alight by the sight of those teary eyes that faced the color of Haitang flowers. And there goes my camera. Give me 2 seconds. We're so close to the end. We're just gonna finish it off with this lovely picture here. I'm sorry. Hold on, where were we? In early spring, and his thoughts drifted off course of their own violation. For an instant, his mind conjured up an image from his past life, this man lying beneath him, panting both from need and the effects of the aphrodisiac, open eyes glazed and unfocused, body trembling ever so slightly, voice hoarse, as those moist, lips parted in soft moans. Please, more. And that's the end of the chapter. And good thing too, because my voice is about to give out. And let me quickly see if I can just not fix this, but change this. Give me a second. Okay, I can't seem to do like a quick fix for this right now, so we're just gonna close it off. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and yeah, that was so much fun. I feel like we made a good dent, and we did manage to just do those few minutes that I accidentally took from you guys. So yeah, we'll be back on Tuesday and Thursday next week for the next bout of reading, and I hope I'll see you there. 再见。